My name is Mikey Goralnik. I'm the Community Design and Development Planner for Mariposa County here in California. Excited to be joined by Miran Day from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo,
Hi.
as well as Aiden Annika Stopka, a
Hello.
fourth year landscape architecture student at Cal Poly SLO, and Jocelyn Figueroa,
Hello.
also a fourth year landscape architecture student at Cal Poly, and we're very excited to present to you on the Merced River Trail, innovative partnerships in planning for multi-beneficial trail systems. So what we'll do is quickly kind of give you a sense of where this project is occurring and a little bit of background about some of the topics and themes that it engages with, as well as some of the limitations that our community faces in implementing it. We'll give you a little bit more detail about the specific project, which is the Merced River Trail, and kind of the roots of the partnership that we're going to be discussing in more detail throughout the course of the presentation. That being a partnership between Mariposa County and Cal Poly SLO, the landscape architecture program at Cal Poly SLO, and talk about the academic approach that the faculty and the students of that program have taken to engaging with this project, and share with you some of the primary takeaways from the public sector planning, trail advocate perspective, the academic educator, pedagogical perspective, as well as the perspective of our students. So Mariposa County is a rural county in that includes primarily the Sierra foothills and part of the High Sierra. We're located in between the community of Merced and Yosemite National Park. So the town of Mariposa, rather, located between Merced and Yosemite National Park. Town of Mariposa is the county seat and the largest community in Mariposa County. And the Merced River, which is a wild and scenic river for almost the entirety of its run through Mariposa County, is located in between the town of Mariposa and Yosemite National Park. And as a rural community, we face a range of social and cultural and demographic disadvantages that all projects, but certainly our trail projects, need to be intentionally and really actively trying to engage with. We've got one of the oldest, as far as average age, communities in the state of California. Only 20% of adults in rural communities throughout the U.S. Get in a physical activity. So really critical themes as far as public health, as well as our increased diabetes prevalence. But also, there's a high unemployment rate in Mariposa County and a limited amount of economic development and employment opportunities for our rural community. And one thing that's really important to note is that these cultural, social, and demographic disadvantages are also reflected in many ways in the capacity of our community's trail advocates and other civic kind of programming leaders to implement and develop projects that can engage with these types of issues, with these limitations and disadvantages. But in addition to these cultural and demographic issues, our community is also facing really significant ecological and climate change related issues, particularly those associated with fire. As you can see here, Mariposa County is listed as a tier. Most of Mariposa County, or a great deal of Mariposa County, is listed as tier 1 tree mortality hazard area. So really, kind of the epicenter of the tree mortality pandemic. For that reason and a number of others, almost half of the county is listed as being in a very high fire hazard zone. And that includes certainly the project area that we're looking at here through the Merced River Trail project. And as a result, our community has repeatedly faces, like many others throughout the state, devastating, significant, catastrophic wildfires pretty much every year. I should mention that this image doesn't include the creek fire from this most recent fire season. So these are all really important themes and topics and issues that our community is seeking to engage in through all of our projects, not just trail projects, but certainly through the Merced River Trail project. So what is the Merced River Trail project? Great question. The Merced River Trail is conceptualized as a multi-use, non-motorized recreational trail along the northern side of the Merced River, along the which is designated wild and scenic, as I mentioned, um, along the historic rail grade that the Yosemite Valley Railroad used to traverse. So here you can see on the left of the image the historic railroad, and on the right of the image is the early conception or the early incarnation of Highway 140, which is the all-weather road from Merced through Mariposa to Yosemite Valley. And so the trail could be a variety of different lengths. We're currently working. So one thing that we're certain of is that the trail will and actually currently does start at the historic rail town of Bagby and travel upstream along the wild and scenic Merced um, through BLM lands, ultimately then getting to land that's managed by the U.S. Forest Service and going somewhere else after that. We're currently working on, currently engaged in a lengthy community planning process to get consensus and community input on um, not only where the trail will ultimately go and kind of what sort of places it'll pass through and what the trail use experience will be like, but other really essential kind of characteristics about how the trail can contribute to and also how can we mitigate its potential impacts on our community. So really big questions, but if we're able to answer these questions, the trail is anticipated or certainly hoped. it- We 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 expect the trail to have a range of really significant benefits to our county's ecological profile, um, as far as some of these topics are identified here. Um, Issues that become increasingly important in the context of our county's wildfire risk exposure, but also to our cultural experience. You know, this trail can really make a significant contribution to what it means to live in and be from and certainly visit Mariposa County, and to promote a sense of civic connection to and responsibility for our public lands and the landscapes that make our community a really really special, wonderful place um, in our state. So, in order to achieve and realize the range of these really the interdisciplinary and varied benefits that the Merced River Trail can offer our disadvantaged community, we've got some really significant questions that we need help answering. Um, where should this trail go? Again, we don't really know. Um, Through our sort of community dialogue process, we're figuring out that we don't really know where it needs to go. We don't know where the community wants it to go. We don't know, basic questions about its route or its material or sort of some of the aesthetic considerations of the trail, um, what sort of amenities it should or shouldn't provide to kind of complement what the desired trail experience is like throughout the river corridor, um, who might be, what sort of creatures, humans or otherwise, might we be in conflict with, or might trail users be in conflict with, and how can those conflicts be mitigated? And how is it really possible for this trail to uh, really maximize its contribution to our reducing our wildfire risk profile? This is kind of a incipient and in some ways nebulous concept, and so we're really trying to work through and figure out what can be done to take advantage of that opportunity, and also just what else is there, like what else are we missing, what are the other benefits, what are the other um, uh, considerations or concerns that we need to be aware of in order to make sure that this trail project is as effective as it can possibly be. And that's where our partners at Cal Poly come
Thanks, Mikey. Good morning again. My name is Miran Day, assistant professor in the landscape architecture program at Cal Poly. I'm going to cover academic approach in this presentation. Before we getting into the presentation, I want to briefly go over Cal Poly and our program, landscape architecture program. Cal Poly San Luis Obispo has a unique higher education value, which is learn by doing. Learn by doing has always been Cal Poly's core philosophy. It is a deliberate process in which students acquire knowledge and skills through active engagement and self-reflection. The community engagement has been fully supported by the university. The landscape architecture department has a 5-year program, unlike some other majors. At first 2 years, the students learn fundamentals of the profession and design theories and principles, and third and fourth year classes focusing on the application of knowledge and the students actually implementation of some knowledge in design process. Fifth year the classes focus on integration of their learnings and develop their own projects. That's when they really integrate all the things and put it in their own projects. Our program is one of the highest recognized program in the nation according to Design Intelligence. We are number one most hired in the nation and the best in the nation for 6 different design education focus areas in 2019 to 2020. One of the reasons we have been so successful is because we encourage and support community engagement. Why then community engagement? Because it connects the student learning in the classroom with the real world experiences in the community. There are countless benefits of community engagement to students, future landscape architects here. I have listed a few in this presentation that I expect from my classes. The community engagement increase the students' knowledge of community issues, the needs, strengths, and resources, and increase the quality and quantity of student interactions with the client and stakeholders. It is very important students have that interactions and understand the community before they start design process. Students gain meaningful feedback from the community, learn to value personal involvement in community, and develop professional skills like communication, leadership, teamwork, presentation, etc. The community engagement also exposes students to options or different point of view other than their own. With that, Cal Poly and Mariposa County established a collaborative partnership for the trail development with the design ideas and innovative approaches. Starting from 2019 until now, and we plan on doing again next quarter, we have completed 3 different projects in 4 different studios, mainly in the LA 403 Natural Environment Studio and LA 404 Cultural Environment Studio. Both classes are in their 3rd and 4th year level. The partnership started from LA 404 Cultural Environment Studio in spring 2019. The course was to explore, integrate cultural values, issues, and landscapes to design and planning projects. The project was to develop the Merced River Trail master plan that Mikey described earlier, with the identity and programs embracing the characteristics of the region and reflecting cultural historical values of the area through community engagement. Community engagement happened 3 times during the quarter. First one was a 2-day field trip, and then mid-review by the client and final presentation to the stakeholders. During the mid 2-day field study, the client, Mikey, presented the project overview, and the stakeholders and our students actually hiked together and had a different conversations, which was great for students. And then the students did their own independent field study in next day. The project was great. However, we felt that students wanted to learn more than just Merced River Trail, to fully understand the trail and answer some of the questions that Mikey actually posed earlier. So we started actually doing different classes, which actually was the LA 403 Natural Environment Studio in fall 2019. The class is to explore and integrate ecological point of view and sustainability and environmental planning principles to landscape architecture projects. The project was to develop a more comprehensive countywide trail system in Mariposa County and provide guidelines for the trail through community engagement and expert input. It was a multidisciplinary studio with a equal number of architecture and landscape architecture students. We used a geodesign approach for this process just because it is a really broad. It's not just a design task. It is a really comprehensive thinking process. For some of you who may not know about geodesign, geodesign is a collaborative design process with extensive research and analysis, considering various viewpoints to solve complex issues at the various geographic scales. The collaborators of geodesign are the people of the place, which is Mariposa County in here, design professionals like us, landscape architects, geographic science, fire ecologists and fire management folks, and information technologies such as GIS. So many projects these days are somewhere between home building to global science. No matter where they are at, typically has multiple issues and considerations, not able to develop with simple solutions. Many times it is beyond the scope of knowledge of any one individual person, discipline, or method could do. That's why geodesign comes in and help to kind of understand and think about how to approach. Geodesign approach is used in this project when project was well defined, which is our case, and not easily analyzed, which is also our case in some locations, not easily solved and marginally understood. So that's typical cases the geodesign approach is adopted, and I felt that this project was perfectly fit to geodesign approach. Community engagement in this class happened 3 times again: 2-day field study, mid-review by the client, and a final presentation to stakeholders. However, this time we had a little more intensive 2-day field study. During that field study, we had a community expert lectures for the first half day and a community workshop for the second half day. And by the end of the day, students and community members comfortably agreed, although they may not be the perfect solution, but agreeable solutions. And students presented to the community members their trail plan. And then following day, students conducted a day-long independent field study based on what they learned from the workshop. This is one of a county-wide systems students and community members together developed after that community engagement. Again, this may not be perfect and a lot to change, a lot to think about and debate, but something that students and community work together and finding a lot of new things through the process. And then spring of last year, we collaborated again in the 404 Cultural Environment Studio, which is focusing on cultural values and the challenges and the community has for Mid-Pines Recreation and Resilience Project. This project is to come up with a proposal for Mid-Pines Park that meets desires for recreation for the residents and adopt resilience strategies in response to climate change. It is a park connecting Mid-Pines community and Bear Creek Trail, which links to the Merced River Trail and town of Mariposa. That's what this actually project's important is. So we can actually see the Merced River Trail to Bear Creek Trail and Mid-Pines, connecting the community, that area, and continue on to all the way to Mariposa, town of Mariposa. We see that as a great opportunity to look for. Lastly, learning from those 3 studios, we wanted to go back and redo Merced River project. River Trail project, because earlier we actually, after first studio, we wanted to learn more about the Mariposa and trail systems in Mariposa County. And then we felt we did enough and we want to actually revisit the Merced River Trail project. Also, County was actively working on the trail, so that we thought this was a really great opportunity to engage. The project was to create a comprehensive planning proposal for the Merced River Trail, which includes the planning of the trail, but also looking at the area affected by the trail. The studio was only responsible for planning of the project, and detailed design will be done next to studio. So we can focus on planning, really kind of establish the fundamental groundwork, and then move on to next the design process, which we're excited about it. Here we have two student examples. A student is gonna come in and present their work. It will, starting from Neighbors of Nature. Aiden.
Yeah, hi, I'm Aiden Stafka, and I'll be representing my team Trail with Character with our project Neighbors of Nature. So my team's mission was to invest in the distinct character of the Merced River Trail in a way that would set it apart from Yosemite Valley and honor the unique identity of Mariposa County. And the proposed theme that we wanted to inspire future designers to take when creating their plans for this trail is to think about the incredibly intimate natural adventure that the Merced River Trail has, that is cherished by locals because of the personal encounters that it has with the river and wildlife. So inspiring new recreation and tourism, we want designers to make sure that levels of appreciation and stewardship can be inspired in these new visitors, so that they can start seeing this place the same way that locals do. And our goals with the project were to protect and support the natural character through ecological restoration strategies. Secondly, pass on the passion, so taking unique routes to recreation and signage to inspire this more personal take on this natural adventure. And lastly, invest in the county unity and uniqueness by aligning the trail with the Green New Deal to help strengthen Mariposa County's economy, inclusion, and social justice, as well as its decarbonization. So what this project gave us the opportunity to do is really dive into the research part, especially in the ecological side of things. So looking at the main challenges on the ecological parts of this project, what we found was fire protection, flood adaptation, habitat restoration, and botanical beautification were our main challenges that we wanted to tackle. And botanical beautification was actually a term that we got from one of the community outreach experiences we had, and one of the community members said he really wanted a botanical masterpiece. So that was a great opportunity for us to really zone in on something that the community would want. And then looking at recreation and tourism, one of the main things we wanted to look at was how to escape the shadow of Half Dome, right? To find how we can distinguish the value of this place apart from Yosemite to inspire more recreation over here. But what we really struggle with and tried to strive for throughout the project was finding a way to still honor the actual character of this place and not sell out and make it super modern and make it too much of a tourist trap, and still have it feel like that neighborhood, local experience that people love this place for. And our opportunity was to just emphasize the beautiful natural character of this place by reframing the existing natural experience through different educational and recreational experiences. So, and part of this process, that struggle we had was some of my teammates were really passionate about making this place accessible and safe by incorporating a lot of safety kits and call boxes. But through our interactions with Mikey and the community, we realized like it was getting way off course and wasn't focusing on the nature and what the community really needed here. So in creating our final spatial analysis map, that's where we really got to focus down on what really matters, which is the wild environment, how we can protect that, and how people are going to experience it. So on the right track, the final proposed plan and guidelines that we had designated a lot of areas along the trail where no development should occur. so that nature can take its place as intended there. But in the access points near roads and popular hiking and camping spots, that's where we decided we could suggest these types of solutions and proposals that designers could take forward. And we developed solution systems as a group. And for one example, this wilderness enlivenment system is one I created as a kind of summary of what a lot of my teammates were trying to do, where we took ecological stimulus, which was natural restoration, and environmental storytelling. So finding creative ways to teach and educate visitors so that we can continue to help the river provide its natural wild environment while helping new visitors and tourists perceive that natural character for how wonderful it really is. And then we all got to develop these types of typologies and system applications in diagram form so that we could give a visual representation for what future designers could implement in their future plans. Thank you. And next, Jocelyn will present her project, Living with Fire.
So hello, my name is Jocelyn Figueroa Silva, and I'll be presenting the team Living with Fire. It's not clicking. Oh, there we go. So when we're looking at like the background of this project, as you can see in the map below, the areas in red have already burned 67% more frequently than they would have pre-European settlement times. So this was like the main lead behind like our whole team Living with Fire. So when it came to the community needs, we wanted to respond to certain things. So this included accessibility, trail system, and transportation solutions, the reduction of wildfire risk, and just having better communication and connection along the trail. So for our project framework, as a team, we believe that the designer's role in climate change response is really important. So that is what guided our project vision, which is to create climate resilience through wildfire risk reduction and community stewardship, promoting a growth mindset towards living with fire. So in order to achieve this, we developed goals that were aimed towards the Green New Deal policies, such as justice, decarbonization, and job opportunities. So first, we looked at the site analysis, the attitude towards fire in general. So the important areas that we wanted to explore was how did other countries and people perceive fire and its effects? What methods were used around the world for fire mitigation? Why did we, the US, develop a hostile relationship towards fire? And how can we change our current way of thinking? We also analyzed the fire ecology in Mariposa County currently. So we answered questions such as why was the fire ecology changing? So why are we going from natural wildfires to mega fires? What methods are currently being used? What are the differences between a mega fire and a natural wildfire? And also, how are these mega fires affecting Mariposa County and the community in general? So when it came to the process, after analyzing, we developed our first iteration of the spatial map. And this is where we noticed that our map was too vague and it didn't have an actual call to action. We had these big ideas that were broadly covered, but they were graphically not visible, which made our design unclear. So after talking with Mikey and getting some feedback with the community, we realized that our topic was bigger than we thought. It was this idea that was still fairly new, and we had to better show our ideas so that people can understand what we were talking about. So after talking with them, we realized that we needed more explanation and graphical representation in order to show our ideas better graphically and also explain our ideas better. So this is when we decided that we should develop two separate plans. So the first one was aimed more for the community. So it focused on achieving sustainability development goals for the community, such as education, clean air and water, transportation, and science and technology. And it also demonstrated how the design would benefit the community specifically. So looking at small towns such as Bagby, Mid Pines, Bryceburg, etc. And then the second plan was for the trail more specific. So a close-up view of the design elements on the trail, and also focus on making the trail more accessible to not only community members, but people who are passing by as well. So in order to do this, we developed systems, as Aiden said earlier. So one of the systems that was developed for us was a citizen science system, which focused on different types of interactive and informational signage. And this aims to bring education and community stewardship together. So it creates an experience for various users, such as the community, school children, and tourists. So not only does it bring the community together and the school children, but also people who are passing by who want to experience the community as well can also take part in this location. So moving forward with our takeaways.
Well, thanks, Jocelyn. So yeah, so to share sort of some of the main things that each one of our different kind of user groups, if you will, has learned about this. I think I can get that started. Is that, you know, from my perspective, or from the local trail planner or trail advocate perspective, one of the real incredible benefits of this sort of arrangement is this has been a low cost and really, frankly, no cost opportunity to bring together people who are interested in talking about and need to be involved in discussing these kinds of projects, who might otherwise like not really have a reason to come together. So here you can see a photo of the planning director, staff from 2 of the national forests in our area the trail passes through, a variety of different community members, individuals from the Park Service, who are all, as you can see, standing around a map and sharing what they know about the area and providing input that not only benefits the studio and the students' academic experience, their learning, and their capacity growth or capacity building in terms of their skills to think about this project, but also for county staff and for other folks who are actively engaged in this project to benefit from their insights and to incorporate them into sort of more traditional or formal trail planning and community engagement work. Next slide, please. One more back again. Another real important takeaway is that this is an excellent opportunity for us to refine and to clarify how we're thinking about these key project concepts. So, you know, as these ideas are starting to emerge or bubble up from individuals in the community or from individuals within different agencies or departments in county or federal agencies. This is, you know, presenting these ideas to students and trying to communicate what we're trying to get at or what we're talking about to folks who've never been to the site or who've only been there once and who are trying to have this whole mess of issues and topics and themes under control so that they can begin to grapple with them is an excellent opportunity to again reframe and find better ways to articulate what we're trying to get at it and test new ideas in that process. Next slide, please. And it provides access to really intelligent, like bright, ambitious, talented people who otherwise, you know, I might not and probably don't have access to. I mean, I'm 35, and there are things that these students are capable of that, you know, technologies that they have access to that I've never heard of. We don't have. And being able to have a fresh set of eyes from people who are from different parts of the world or certainly the state to bring to bear on our local issues is incredibly valuable to advancing our thinking and providing us with tools that we need to think more creatively and innovatively about our issues. And I should also mention that it also provides us with access to potential future workforce for when any of these students graduate and are looking for a fulfilling career in local government. Next slide, please. Some things that we learned, or that, you know, from my perspective, that I think are important to remember, to keep in mind if you choose to pursue this route in your work, is that it's absolutely essential for you to manage what your community's expectations are. and for them to understand that these are students and geniuses and incredibly gifted, hardworking, talented people, but ultimately not professional trail planners. And what their recommendations are not county policy or not our community's official path forward. They're interesting and in some cases extremely developed and appropriate ideas, but in other cases that's not true in all cases, and that's okay. This is a learning experience and an academic environment essentially for these students and for their faculty. So you have to make sure that your stakeholders know that the final deliverables from the studio project isn't what the county is immediately going to be pursuing, and that there are some ideas that are not appropriate for our community or not necessarily reflective of the community's consensus or preferred course of action around these issues. And that's okay, and that's the point. That's the way it's supposed to work. But you have to be really honest and upfront about that from the get go. Next slide, please. The second is, though it's no cost, it's also a ton of work, and it's not easy to just welcome a new group of young people into your community every 4 or 5 months to get them up to speed on what you're dealing with and what the conditions on the ground are, and to organize these important meetings that are really constructive and healthy and significant, but also require a significant amount of coordination and emailing, calling, and following up, and other administrative actions on your part that are needed for this to be effective and for this to be successful. So can't quite underscore enough that though it is no cost, there's still a lot of responsibility in order to make this not only successful and effective for your agency or your end, but also for students and for their faculty. So keep that in mind as you're working on, if you do choose to pursue this route as a partnership. Next slide.
As an educator, the takeaways I have from this partnership, I'm looking at benefits to my classes and students. That is the one of the priorities that I have. The first one is really communication between, really with the clients and students, and setting clear expectations and reminding that classes will have its course learning objectives, and students should understand that this is a partnership working closely with the community and the stakeholders who may not happy with their proposals. So it's like a constant communication in between clients and all the things. So through that process, yes, it is challenging process, but also learn a lot. Not only students learn from the communication, but also me learning, really being in between, coordinating different aspects. So it is learned a lot. Next slide, please. Another lessons as an educator is that flexibility and patience. So I constantly reminding myself and the client, Mikey, that schedule may not be as we planned. Some things are happening in between, and we need to be flexible. I need to be willing to change my course schedule, and again, communication in place. Then I need to remind the students how things are changing, why things are changing. So being able to actually be flexible, getting this project and get going is the one thing. Another thing is be patient to students, because this will be my advice to those clients like Mikey and government agencies, and who may be willing to and interested in doing things. I want them to be patient. We have a course schedule and deliverables, and students, what student develop may not be always what they expect. And again, earlier Mikey talked about the students' proposals that may not be realistic, may not be in their policy, and that is something, just to remind yourselves and ourselves and be patient about things. And another thing I say is, because we've done a few projects and in different studios, we learn a lot more through the process, and we get better at things. So I think that patience is another thing that I learned from this process. Next slide, please. However, with all the challenges and all the hard work, there's no better way to learn. I mean, we learned a ton of things, multiple, can't even compare to some of the lecture courses that we teach at Cal Poly. Just students just had their aha moment and just go for it. And they are very responsible and responsible to their proposals. So I was so pleased, not about may not be about the deliverable outcomes, but about their attitude about designing, talking, communicating with the stakeholders, why their actual opinions matter in design process, and how they can think about moving forward with the projects. Next slide.
In reflecting on my own experience with this project, firstly, working with the real community really offered that insight that we couldn't get just looking at online data from the internet in our research. And it helped prioritize the community needs over my own group's interests. And it gave meaning and motivation to us when we knew that what we were working on could affect real people if this were to be used in a real project. And then specifically working on trail ecology and preservation, I know I had a wonderful experience being able to leave my comfort zone and work on like researching ecological preservation and restoration strategies. And I really enjoyed it to the point where I felt comfortable reaching out to the Bureau of Land Management for resources on the plant life in the actual river. So that was a great experience in knowing we're not alone in this when you get to do these service learning experiences. So I was able to actually reach out to real people and foster a real connection. That was a wonderful experience. And then lastly, specific project benefits, just speaking on what Miriam was talking about, this gave us a lot of time to learn and make mistakes as we just dove in and immersed ourselves into this research part of the project without rushing into the design phase and making ill-informed decisions. And this team-based format was a great experience in learning how to make decisions in a group and take leadership when necessary, and take risks and know that you have teammates to back you up and to learn from. So it was I loved the experience. It was great.
Yeah, so going off what Aiden was saying, we had some very similar reflections, but for Living with Fire group, we gained an experience on fire ecology and fire mitigation, which is not something that we had learned so much about before. So we were able to learn about how fire mitigation is done around the world and how we can actually bring those practices and apply them in California in the future. And we also got insight on how Native Americans dealt with wilderness before modern technology. So thinking of how we can use past work to do the future. And it also helped us understand the reason behind why we have this fear of fire and wildfires and how we can change that in the future. And as Aiden was saying, we were able to work with a real community this time. So we were able to understand the effects of how these wildfires are affecting other areas. So yes, they're affecting us personally right now, but seeing how it affects other people as well. And then it helped guide the project in a direction for community benefits. So how this project would benefit their health, their economy, etc. And it also allowed for personal touches in the design, which made it more unique to this place to give it more character, as Aiden was saying. And personally, it helped me develop a client dialogue on how to express my ideas so that they can be understood by other people and not just have like this landscape architect wording and dialogue. And then when it comes to specific project benefits, It really did encourage us to explore a new topic that is currently affecting our homes and landscapes today. And like this course, the way it was formed, it gave us time to fully develop these systems that we can implement into our design and make it more effective. And then personally, the team-based format was a great learning experience, and it did help me learn how to work with people who have different work ethics and styles, and also helped me gain some leadership skills.
Thank you all so much for your time.